there's always something that happens that makes everyone a Bitcoin maxi. And I feel like this is kind of like the sobering moment for everyone and looking at their portfolio thinking, all right, I wish I had more Bitcoin.
We've seen huge token unlocks, and this isn't a new problem, but it's something that's getting larger and larger, right? So token unlocks is when a project, let's call out Solana, for example, they have locked supply that isn't available to buy, and then they release it. From a fundamental standpoint, it's not great, and that also ties into the fact that there is a record amount of new tokens being launched every single week.
Hey guys, welcome to this week's Tapping Into Crypto with me, the lovely Ted, as always.
Thank you, Pav. Good
So
to
I
see
actually
you.
gave you a compliment this time.
I appreciate it, mate.
Yeah,
It's new for me to get a compliment.
Well, I
But
feel like this was the kind of episode we should be kind to each other. You know, there's a lot of things happening.
that's true. Well, I just want to
well,
give you a
it's-
compliment, and you look great with that new haircut.
Oh, thank you.
Fantastic.
I don't like this anymore.
Yeah, it feels weird, doesn't it?
Let's never do this again. Ted and I were thinking, what should we talk about today? Obviously, the market's stagnant. Everyone's portfolio is still probably bleeding out to some degree. Thought it was a good chance to do a little bit of retrospect, a little bit of a good, bad, the ugly. I think we're basically coming up with this concept, so it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, well, you might.
Yeah.
I mean, we've discussed a lot of the good before, but maybe not touched more so on the bad and like what that looks like. And then the ugly, there is some stuff out there that just isn't a good look at all for crypto and
Bit of a
should probably
backward
be
step.
eradicated. So we'll leave that till the end. But look, there's a lot of things to unpack, and I think, in my opinion, the good probably outweighs the bad, but you cannot ignore those things that are happening right now. And so we're going to discuss them and maybe give our personal thoughts at the end.
Yeah, and I guess what we hope everyone takes away from digesting everything, but you know, our opinions on this at least, is that there's probably a lot happening that maybe isn't quite in the spotlight right now, but give it a few weeks, sentiment sort of changes, you know, these things become more and more in the front of people's minds as opposed to just focusing on the negatives. But let's just call it out for what it is today, right?
Yep. Absolutely. So starting with the good, I want to call out, like we've touched on the Trump pro crypto, administration
Took
so
that to
much.
death, yeah.
So we're not going to really touch on that, but that is a clear point in the sort of the good category. But we've already discussed that. So what else you got for us?
So a big one that has been on my radar for some time that kind of ticked over but didn't make too much of a racket was a legislation piece in the US called SAB 121. So that's got to do with the ability for banks to basically custody crypto. So now there's a bit more clarity for banks on where this sort of sits. And obviously, my take has been like, I think anyone at the end of the day sees crypto as an asset or of opportunity. Like it's still going through its proving grounds. But I think at the end of the day, a bank's going to want to get access to assets that they can make money off of, right? So they're going to now be able to provide custodial services, maybe even be able to provide staking and interest-bearing activity, loans backed by crypto, even insurance products. So there's regular, mainstream products that banking now provides. It opens a door for crypto to now enter that same sort of bracketing. So that's exciting for me because it also means that, as much as we're seeing success with the ETFs, there's still quite a few institutions that I'm sure are sidelined and not able to hold crypto due to the complexity still with the custody arrangement that even the ETFs use. So being able to use like a mainstream modern day, blue chip bank to custody your crypto as per the bylaws of whatever institution that we're talking about here, this opens a door for that too. So, there's potentially trillions of dollars still on the sideline that needs something like this to happen. And this is just in the US, right? So it's always a trickle down effect. One person does it, the rest follow. So
yeah, it's massive. Do we have that in Australia right now?
I think it's a bigger piece in regard to like how crypto is going to be regulated and legislated. But I think where we get to in the end of the day will result in what banks can and can't do. Yeah,
and speaking of, I think the Liberal government came out and said they're going to prioritize crypto if they, come into power following the next election. So we'll wait to see if that plays out. And I think the Labor government, under Albanese that's currently in power, they're not putting so much of a spotlight on it.
Yeah, latest I heard it wasn't a piece for them.
Yeah, maybe following the footsteps of, the Trump administration, trying to, see if that's going to sway the public.
Yeah, it's all about voters to a large degree. But I mean, we could benefit from it too.
Yeah.
How about you, Ted?
Probably the big piece for me is altcoin ETFs. So we've got we've got several Bitcoin ETFs, also ETH ETFs, but the big picture has been, or the big story has been the Bitcoin ETFs, which have absolutely killed in the last year or so. They're some of the best performing ETFs, not only from a performance point of view, but also from inflows coming in. So people seem to be there's a lot of appetite for those. But now we've seen a lot of these asset managers file for other altcoin ETFs. So in particular, Solana, XRP, Litecoin, Dogecoin, even some smaller, we talked about Bonk the other day. There's an ETF filing for that. So, but, they're all applications and none of them are approved yet, right? So it's all been a little bit up in the air as to, what's going to happen with these. But Bloomberg analyst Eric Balchunas, which is sort of our go-to guy for any news on the US ETFs, has basically said that, prior to Trump winning the election, the chance of getting an altcoin ETF outside of Bitcoin and ETH would be, less than 5%. But now he's increased those odds to, up to 90% for a Litecoin ETF before the end of the year. 70% for a Solana ETF, 65% for an XRP ETF, and 75% for a Dogecoin ETF. And so I think all the deadlines for those are sort of end of the year, looking at around October. So that would be massive if we saw that, because as I said, that really just opens the door to institutional funds for some of these altcoins that don't get the love as say Bitcoin and ETH do.
And for some color, the previous regime that we saw pre-Trump and when Gary Gensler was obviously head chair, they basically waited to the very final deadline before they approved the Bitcoin ETF, and then it was like a bit of a flurry there in January 2024. So wonder with this regime, new chair, what is it going to be faster? Are they going to drag it all the way out till October again? I think that's going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah, true. I was kind of just thinking because all I have to go off is the previous administration. It's
which was completely different.
They'll wait till the last day, but they might try and prioritize it this time around. So that's a good point. But that would be incredible, right? I think Trump has said he wants to prioritize US based projects. So you're looking at XRP, Solana. I think Litecoin's more of it's more decentralized. So I think it was started by Charlie.
I forget his name.
Charlie, I forget his name as well.
Yeah,
that's terrible. But I don't know if that could be considered a US-based project. But that's got, Eric Balchunas is giving it the highest chance of approval, likely because it can more easily be considered a commodity, right? Whereas, XRP and Solana have been put on the spotlight as potential unregistered securities, because XRP is owned by Ripple and so forth. What else? That's two big points for the good category.
I think from my perspective, just putting the macro hat on, which I haven't done for a while, US dollar weakening. So we always talk about crypto, and everyone also does it as well when they measure it at home. It's quite often pegged or paired to a US dollar value. So, Bitcoin's at 100K US dollars. Very basically by virtue, if the US dollar's, relatively showing strength versus other currencies globally or weakening, that's going to impact the kind of resistance or that we see against that crypto price valuation too. So, we've seen the US dollar just recently fall below the 2024 highs. It's failed to go higher even through all these talks of tariffs, and everyone's being spooked that Trump's just pushing for America first and all this sort of stuff. So I find it very interesting that we're starting to see a bit of a downtrend form. And this is a big piece of the puzzle that we called out last year, that, hey, if we start to see this downtrend, which it looks like we're just starting, if it is going to continue, that bodes really well for crypto assets. And it's a usually multi-month trend. It's not something that's like, hey, we could rally for a few weeks when something like this changes direction. So that's something I've got pretty close on the radar to watch. It's not just crypto that'll benefit. It's more of a broad economic benefit to a lot of other countries and just growth in general. So I think just the knock-on effect that will have for risk-on assets like crypto just bode well. So that's pretty exciting.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Yeah,
I won't ask any questions on that.
And while I'm on the topic of macro too, just some of the leading indicators for the markets regarding liquidity. So we're talking about the amount of money in the system. That's always been a great proxy for how likely are we to start trending in crypto. So it's about a 60 to 90 day lead or lag, if you want to call it. So looking at the data now, it takes, again, a very long time for these trends to develop, but it looks like we did form some sort of bottom in about mid to late December with some of the metrics that I measure. So that does indicate about March which is when we should expect potentially that to have a knock-on effect and we start to see higher prices for crypto if this trend continues. So, from like a perspective of what's good, what's to look forward to, these trends continuing, sustaining, I think that's going to be a big part of the puzzle to play of like when do we see higher again? But it's still probably too early to say 100% certainty, but like that's where the data is pointing to right now.
So should I go away and not watch the crypto charts at all for 6 weeks until March, or what's the strategy there for you, sort of everyday crypto punter?
Well, I wouldn't say for everyone what to do, but me personally, like I'm just continuing to DCA. I've definitely taken a back seat with my personal trading just because conditions are not good for me and how I trade. So I've just taken this time to just rest and relax and just have a break and complain about how nothing's happening.
Yeah, I know. It's easy to complain, right? But I think these opportunities we always look back on and be like, oh man, could have got in there, could have got in way lower. So I think a key indicator we look at and really easy to understand is the fear and greed index, and that's sort of sitting at that fear level, maybe more towards neutral now.
40.
And like if you look at the last sort of 3 times it's hit those levels, like those have been sort of the best times to get in, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Anything could happen in crypto. We could have a crypto winter that starts tomorrow, but as we've looked at before, like we think sort of historically and sort of based on that market cycle that we see play out, like we got at least another 6 to 12 months in us.
Agreed. Should we jump into the bad?
Yeah, look, I think we covered the good pretty extensively. A lot of sort of government regulation chat there, ETFs
Pretty
or related
punchy.
to around regulation.
I think the good and all for me is just there's more things to look forward to because we're talking about broader trends, right? They're not just like overnight good news pieces. They're like it's going to change the landscape completely. Yeah.
Interestingly, the bad, we're actually focusing more on like a fundamental standpoint.
Yeah.
Like we've seen huge token unlocks, and this isn't a new problem, but it's something that's getting larger and larger, right? So token unlocks is when a project, let's call out Solana, for example, they have locked supply that isn't available to buy, and then they release it. So it's basically diluting the current supply. And
it's for like early investors, right?
Yeah, exactly. Or not necessarily, but I think in most cases, yes. But in this case, they can, or in this case, they're diluting the supply. And so when we see it, demand remain constant, but the supply increases, we're going to see price go down. So in January, we saw about $12 billion in token unlocks, which is huge, right? That's just
massive.
Fresh supply that dilutes the individual price of each individual token, if that makes sense. But then, we've got even more this month. So we've got $3 billion in unlocks. So we've got SUI, WLD, Rose, Say, DYDX, TIA. They've all got unlocks this week alone. More to come in the coming weeks as well. So from a fundamental standpoint, it's not great. And that also ties into the fact that there is a record amount of new tokens being launched every single week. Like in January, I think we had, by the end of January, over 400,000 new tokens were launched every week.
It's crazy, eh?
Like if you look back at 2021, we thought 20,000 tokens in total was a huge amount.
Yeah.
But now there's being 400,000 being made every week. Like it's just ridiculous.
Seems unreasonable now that like a rising tide raises all ships, right? Like that saying, like if the whole market goes, everything goes. I just don't know if we ever see that again.
Yeah, it's hard to sort of imagine that in this landscape, like because the main chain that we're seeing all these new tokens being launched is Solana, and that's because of projects like Pump.fun, where pretty much anyone can create their own token. And I think from a fundamental standpoint, that is a major issue because there should be a barrier to entry in order to create a crypto project. Like
maybe there shouldn't be, and that's just how it is.
Yeah, I think in the past you could probably have that perspective, and because you want to see community-backed coins that are just based on nothing. Like Dog with Hat doesn't try to be anything, right? It's just a meme coin based on a dog literally with a hat. But now we're seeing just everyone trying to get a piece of the pie and create their own meme coin, but it's just gone ridiculous. And
it's all the celebs, right?
And the distribution of wealth across crypto is just getting so thin. So the projects with good fundamentals are losing out on some of that value that's flowing in. So I don't know. Like, do you think something needs to change in that aspect where, like, there should be a barrier to entry to create a token?
I don't think so. I think we've seen this always in terms of like, you can call it vaporware or whatever you want to call it. Like things just pop up overnight saying they do something, or in this case, do nothing, and they just attract attention. Because for me, it's like the markets, the only thing that they do is they advertise, right? Price goes higher, that's advertising. People then rush to obviously buy that product. In this case, it's meme coins. The only thing is like when, like we talked about the macro earlier. So like when the macro environment doesn't support growth. When you think about like crypto right now, I feel like the amount of money in the system, like it's not really growing. Like the size of the pie is staying relatively the same size. It actually is growing a little bit, but not much, right? So it's effectively PvP. Like it's player versus player. Who's going to steal market cap from who, and then who's going to sell and actually take and realize that gain, right? So it's just like, it's almost like hot potato is like the best way I can think of it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I don't know if anything has to change, but I think the market will get to this point where it just gets like the average person is just disgusted with the idea of these meme coins.
Yeah.
And I could see a situation where, like we talked about the ETFs, when they get greenlit, that could blow some huge positive tailwinds into some of the more blue chip meme coins. Because I think there'll always be demand for meme coins, but maybe everyone gets over these like trench warfare meme coins where you have to like be in from the bottom and sell aggressively and go into more your blue chips that have been around for quite some time. They're generally better distributions as well because they're not so concentrated with a few. There's many that hold those tokens as well. Yes, I don't know if I agree that they need to disappear.
Yeah, it can't go on like this, right? Because there's just no value being put into any of these projects, and it's taking away from the value of the real projects with strong fundamentals. And then if people don't see those things, going up, and which most people, are in crypto to make a profit, right? But if they can't make a profit on some of the projects that they think have, a strong background, a strong team, then they're not going to bother, right? So I think, you're right. It's sort of seasonal in that sense, but something needs to change at some point.
I always feel like I've only been like through 2 major altcoin cycles, right? So this being the second major one, there's always something that happens that makes everyone a Bitcoin maxi. And I feel like this is kind of like the sobering moment for everyone and looking at their portfolio thinking, all right, I wish I had more Bitcoin. Yeah. And that's usually like the bottom of the bottom when people become a maxi.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, what about, do you really think that something's got to change or?
I don't know. I just like, I love crypto for that reason that it's so open and decentralized that pretty much anyone can get into it and it's not controlled by sort of the governments or the big financial institutions. But I think when you look at equities, not anyone can just launch a stock. There's a lot that goes into it. And same with launching a company. Like you need licenses, you need, you need capital to do this. Shouldn't be available to just like for anyone to do it and then walk away 2 days later because it didn't work out, So in the same regard with launching a crypto token, like why is there just no sort of upfront cost or upfront capital that you need to put up in order to launch it?
Well, this ties nicely into our ugly point. I guess we could just jump straight to that. I mean, it's pretty obvious what's been the grossest thing lately. It's made a lot of people, quite bitter at the space, angry, depressed, you name it.
All the above?
All these presidential and celeb meme coins. So I think that's a good example of what you just sort of trying to articulate. Like, it's just not fair. Like, there's obviously in these cases, it's been proven, or even there's been witness accounts recently just on Twitter going around, specifically on the Argentinian coin Libra. Libra?
Yeah, Libra.
Where there were insiders that knew about the token's launch and they sniped it. So they basically used bots and the likes to purchase it as soon as it launched.
Let's just go back to like the main story. So what happened was the Argentinian president is under a lot of scrutiny right now because he promoted this coin Libra on his Twitter, basically saying, it's going to fund small businesses in Argentina and
Did he actually say that?
Yeah. Oh. It's going to do wonders for our country. And then a couple of days later, the coin got rugged and lost about 90% overnight, and it got up to a huge market, like 4.5 billion.
It was big
in a couple of days, and for that to all be rugged and a lot of people lost money, and then everyone's coming after him now and saying like, you promoted this, you scammed your own people. People are even calling for his impeachment, which is pretty massive. But like what you were saying just then and what you were telling me before the show is there could be more to the story. It's like he's not necessarily behind the rugging himself, but he just should have done more DD on the whole project as a whole.
Well, yeah, it just calls out to what you said. Like, it's not fair if there's insiders that know things that the general public doesn't know. It's insider trading at the end of the day, what we saw. And I think to your point, it was just at the point, like we've seen a couple of these celebrity or political meme coins launch and they've been very successful. So if there are a few people that know it's coming, they can really gear it in their favor, right? Because it's just, and that's what we saw. So a whole bunch of people, I wouldn't say whole bunch, but a selective clique of people access the coin very early, up to the sum of a couple of $100 million, and dumped on the coin.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like maybe they didn't know. The Argentinian president had no idea that this was going to happen. And
Well, he's claiming he shared the post, but he didn't promote it. So.
Well, he posted again last night on how to buy it.
Yeah, I saw that actually.
It's wild.
What's he doing?
I have no idea.
But yeah, like he's not the only one. Like we've also seen the president of Central African Republic,
Yeah, that was
launch a car meme or car coin.
Yeah.
As to be expected, that got rugged about 90%, and so people lost their money there. I'm not sure if he's had to, come out and apologize after that. But this all comes off the back of Trump launch. He's the only really successful launch, right? Where I suppose Melania as well, but everyone's just trying to make a quick buck because they've seen Trump, triple or quadruple, whatever, 10 times his net wealth in the space of like 24 hours, right?
And it's a sad thing too, because a lot of people saw just everyday people making fortunes on that too, because it just blew up so much.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's, I was, when Kanye went on that huge tirade on Twitter and it was like super anti-Semitic, he actually, so it was pretty horrible, but one of the things he tweeted was like he was offered $2 million to promote a meme coin on his Twitter.
For real?
And then, get this right, and then after 8 hours, people were asking that, in the contract, after 8 hours, he was to delete it and come out and say it was a scam, or his account was hacked. So it was actually in the agreement for him to just
play dumb.
Yeah, play dumb and say it was a scam for 8 hours, or say he was hacked, sorry. But fortunately, he didn't take the money, I don't think.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's like a new strategy like that where, people are just trying to make the quickest buck that they can through this industry. And it's like, as you said, it's very ugly and it's gross.
That's ugly.
Yeah.
So be careful. I also was talking to you before the podcast as well, how like even last cycle, if it wasn't meme coins, there were other projects, like just random DeFi projects in last cycle that were launching, had no fundamentals, had no product, just all speculation that, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to do that.
Yeah.
And I think we could sort of say AI had that similar sort of theme as well last year.
Yeah.
And they were rugging too to some degree. Like there's just...
Yeah, and we've got to point out, like these aren't coins that you necessarily find on, say, SwiftX, because we do a lot of due diligence before we list a token or a coin. These are coins that are, recently launched and you might find them on a decentralized exchange, but, people will see other people making a huge amount of money because they can sometimes get lucky or, like you said, have insider trading knowledge. But for the most part, a lot of these projects are just rug pulls or...
race to zero.
Yeah, exactly. And people, there's always people smarter than you or people that know more about, the back end going on. So they're getting in before you.
Yeah. There might be one or two that work out, but, they're few and far between from the data that we've seen. So
yeah. So I guess you're part of sort of the token committee of approving coins that are listed on SwiftX. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, everything you just said, it goes through a very big checklist of things that need to be ticked off before it goes through. I think it's pretty common practice for a lot of exchanges now, but there's a lot more due diligence happening on centralized exchanges than let's go for back 4 years. Because
that's not to say it'll necessarily do well, right? It's just a legitimate project.
Yeah, it's just like very simply, like some of these new tokens that are launching with like a small collective or group. They use all sorts of different methods to spread out the tokens amongst themselves. So it looks like there's not one or two people holding all of them. Give it, 1-2 weeks, market cap grows, and then they just can all exit very quickly. Like there's a lot of risk on people chasing the new shiny thing. But the new shiny thing is very, very dangerous unless you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
But look, there's also some great projects being built. And I know we didn't cover them today, but we're going to cover them probably for the rest of this year.
Yeah.
But I think it's just a sign of the times right now. Like that is definitely ugly. Like what we just went through. That's gross.
Yeah. And I think we're going to see more celebrities do it. Like I was looking at Twitter today. It's like Adam22. He's a YouTuber. He said he's going to release the greatest meme coin ever. And it's like, okay, mate.
A bit late, buddy.
We just saw what happened with the Hawk Tour girl. Like, you know, she had no idea what she was getting into, but the team behind it rugged the whole project. So someone's got to give.
Be interesting to see what happens.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Argentinian president, because that's like it's not just some
pretty high profile
celeb who could get fined. It's, could lose his job over it.
And I've seen the man with the chainsaw. He's serious.
I have seen that. Yeah. Directed Dan.
Do you like it, Daniel?
Final takeaway?
Like always, I think I repeat myself every quarter on this. Every time we see a dip, I feel like it's a great opportunity. Like if you're hurting and, thinking like, oh, how am I going to get out of this? Like I'm down so bad. Just really think about how much you're putting into crypto. Like we always talk about ourselves, like it's crypto for us is part of a balanced portfolio, and it is a volatile market at the end of the day. And really now, like I think I said it before too, this is a period where we see a lot of people just become Bitcoin maxis again, just because they can't stomach it. So, I mean, you look at someone who's been holding 50%, Solana meme coins versus just 50% Bitcoin. One person's definitely got a bigger smile, or not. They're definitely not smiling right now, but like it's definitely more palatable if you're holding more Bitcoin right now.
Yes.
And I've had a few Solana meme coins go to zero, but for me, it was like always had the expectation, like if they go to zero, I'm okay with that. Like I'd never put in more than I was willing to lose.
Yeah.
That's all I would say. But I don't think meme coins are dead.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah.
But I don't think, just because it's a meme coin and it's new, it's going to do well.
Nah, this mercenary stuff's got to stop. Yeah. People smarten up.
And even the likes of like old meme coins.
Yeah.
Like, are they necessarily going to come back? Probably, maybe not.
I think so. Some of them
will.
Yeah.
I'm sure. But not all.
Such as the ETF ones.
Yeah. True.
Nice little tailwind.
Yeah.
How about you, mate? Any finishing marks?
Oh, I mean, yeah, just sort of on the same sort of notion that you were talking about is taking profits as well. You don't have to be up like 500%. I don't think people know what they even want. They just want it to go more and more, and that greed sort of sets in, especially when, things are going well. They think it can go higher and higher, but just, have some, keep your senses about you. Like you're in this to make a profit, I assume. So when there's an opportunity to take profits, take them and don't look back. Don't have that FOMO. It's like after it goes up even more after you've taken profits, don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
Yep. Speaking from personal experience here, it sounds like.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Of course. Yeah. Mate, we've learned every lesson there is to learn.
Yeah. We'll learn it again.
We'll probably learn it again.
Cool. All right, guys. Hopefully this was helpful. A little bit of a summation of what's happened so far. I mean, it's only been, just in the middle of February. It feels like it's been an eternity since the year turned over. But look, hopefully next couple of weeks, got some more exciting updates to come with what's happening, and just
more guests.
More guests.
Yep.
Yeah, there's definitely more guests coming.
Who have you got coming on?
God, you put me on the spot. Look, we'll keep our cards close to our chests there, but there's a few people lined up in the pipeline.
I think we'll have to get Chris Vanek back on. That's always a good time when he's on.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Alrighty, thank you guys.
Thanks.
Catch you next week.
See ya.